There are moments in sports that have nothing to do with a game, nothing to do with a stat line, and nothing to do with a press conference answer, and yet they tell you more about an athlete than anything that has ever happened inside a stadium. June 29th, 2026, Beaverton, Oregon, the Nike Opening Finals, the most prestigious annual showcase in American football culture, where the best high school prospects in the country come to compete, be evaluated, and be seen by the people who will shape their futures. NFL stars are on campus, cameras are rolling everywhere, the entire football world is locked in, paying attention, watching. And then, a host walks up to Shedeur Sanders, the most talked about, most debated, most analyzed quarterback in the entire NFL this offseason, and introduces him with 4 words that stop him completely dead in his tracks. Not a trade rumor, not a question about Deshaun Watson, not a reference to any depth chart battle or anonymous source criticism or Jason Lloyd film breakdown. 4 words. And what Shedeur did next, in the space of roughly 6 seconds, without preparation, without a publicist in his ear, without a single diplomatic filter, revealed more about who this quarterback actually is than every press conference answer he has delivered since January combined. Before we get to those 6 seconds, you need to understand exactly where this happened and why the location matters as much as the moment itself. Because the Nike Opening Finals are not just a football camp, they are not just a recruiting showcase, they are one of the most culturally significant annual events in the sport. And what goes on there carries weight that extends far beyond the drills and the 40 times and the one-on-one matchups that get posted on social media. The Nike Opening Finals take place every summer on Nike's campus in Beaverton, Oregon, and the player list reads like a preview of the next 5 NFL drafts. The best quarterbacks in the country are there, the best wide receivers, the best corners, the best offensive linemen, the best pass rushers. These are the kids that college coaches are flying across the country to see, the ones that scouts already have files on, even though they haven't played a single college snap yet. This is where futures are decided. This is where the dreams these high school athletes have been carrying since they were 7 years old start to look real, tangible, close enough to touch. And Nike understands the gravity of that, which is why they bring in NFL players to be part of it. Not just to run drills, not just to shake hands and take photos, but to stand in front of these kids as living, breathing proof that the thing they are chasing is real, that it exists, that someone who was once standing exactly where they are standing right now found a way to reach it. Jerry Jeudy was there on June 29, 2026, Shedeur's own Cleveland Browns teammate, one of the most explosive receivers in the NFL, a man whose connection with Shedeur has been one of the most discussed and debated storylines of the entire offseason. Carolina Panthers wide receiver Terrace Marshall McMillan was there, and Bryce Young was there, the former #1 overall pick, whose NFL career has been anything but smooth, who sat in front of those high school kids and said something that every single one of them needed to hear. Sports is a business, so you have to understand it. It's not personal, it's more business, and you have to be able to produce. When you start producing, it's like, what are you around for? So you have to produce. Prominent names, large presence. The entire event radiating the kind of energy that makes young athletes believe in what they are working toward. And then, Shedeur Sanders walked into it, not as a guest speaker delivering polished talking points, but as a Nike athlete who showed up to be part of something bigger than the quarterback competition waiting for him in Cleveland. And that's when the host made the mistake. Or perhaps, and this is where the story starts to get genuinely interesting, it wasn't a mistake at all. There is a real possibility that the introduction was intentional, that it was a setup, a calculated move designed to generate exactly the reaction it generated. Because the kind of response that followed is not something you stumble into by accident if you know anything about Shedeur Sanders and his history. But whether the host genuinely mixed up 2 very different universities in the same state, or whether this was a deliberate joke designed to poke the bear, the result was the same. Shedeur Sanders, in front of cameras, in front of an audience, in front of Jerry Jeudy and Bryce Young and Terrace Marshall McMillan and every high school prospect at the Nike opening finals, was introduced as a legend from Colorado State. Colorado State, not Colorado, not the Colorado Buffaloes, not Coach Prime's program, not the black and gold. Colorado State, the Rams, the in-state rival, the team whose players spent the weeks before their matchup with Colorado in 2023 delivering some of the most memorable and most inflammatory trash talk in recent college football history. And if you don't understand why that distinction matters, if you think Colorado and Colorado State are just two schools in the same state that play each other once a year, then you don't understand what Shedeur Sanders went through to build his legacy, and you don't understand what makes that 6-second reaction so perfectly, completely, unmistakably him. The rivalry between Colorado and Colorado State was not always the spectacle it became. For years, it was a regional game that generated modest interest, a rivalry that existed more on paper than in the national consciousness. And then Coach Prime arrived in Boulder in 2023, and everything changed. The energy shifted, the attention shifted, and with that shift came something that almost always follows when a program suddenly becomes relevant on a national scale. The people who were already there started talking. Colorado State's players and supporters, some of them, started talking loud. Braden Fawcett-Nicolai, the Rams quarterback, looked at Colorado's social media following heading into that game and made a comment that would follow him forever. He pointed out that Colorado had outgained them by less than 100 yards in a previous matchup, then said with the confidence that would age extremely poorly, "We'll see how far Instagram followers get them." Torrey Horton, who now plays for the Los Angeles Rams, went even further. He sat in front of a camera and delivered a line so aggressive that it circulated on the internet for months. "We should have murdered them last year," he said, talking about the Buffaloes. He said it with the energy of someone who had been stewing on a loss, someone who had convinced himself that this was the year everything would be different. And then Colorado played Colorado State, and they handled it. And when it was over, when the final score was posted and the cameras were looking for someone to capture the moment, Travis Hunter, Shedeur's teammate, walked off that field and delivered one of the most perfectly timed, most satisfying responses in college football history. He looked directly into the lens, and with the calm of a man who had just proved every single point that needed to be proved, he said, "Them Instagram followers got us far today, you heard?" That was 2023. Then they played again. Colorado won again. 2 games, 2 victories, 2 reminders delivered directly and without apology to a program that had been very loud about what it planned to do and very quiet after what actually happened. Shedeur Sanders was the quarterback for every single snap of both of those wins. He knows exactly what was said before those games. He remembers every word of it. And when a host at a Nike event in Beaverton, Oregon, with cameras rolling and the football world watching, called him a Colorado State legend, every single one of those memories surfaced in real time. All of it, instantly.
And here is the part of the story that the clip alone cannot fully communicate. The part that you only understand if you watch the entire interaction from start to finish. Shedeur Sanders did not get angry. He did not get defensive. He did not launch into a lecture about the difference between Colorado and Colorado State or start rattling off game scores. He laughed. He raised his hand with the energy of a man who has just heard something so incorrect that the only appropriate response is to stop everything and start over from the beginning. He looked directly at the host with the eye contact of someone who is completely in control of the room, who finds the situation both absurd and hilarious, and who has absolutely zero intention of letting it stand for even one more second. And then he said it. 6 words that the internet has been repeating ever since the clip first appeared. "No, hold on, let's redo it." And when the redo happened, when the host tried the introduction again and got it right this time, Shedeur followed it up with the line that turned a funny moment into a revealing one. "Colorado once was. Colorado State's like we don't mess with them." He said it laughing. He said it with the ease and comfort of a man who is not performing, not managing a narrative, not crafting a response for public consumption. He said it the way you say something to a friend, when the truth is so obvious that being serious about it would almost be an insult to the conversation. Completely unbothered, completely himself, completely, undeniably Shedeur. The clip was uploaded by the @EZoneExposure Instagram account, which covers elite youth football and had a front-row seat to the entire exchange. Locked On Buffs picked it up on X and shared it with a caption that immediately communicated what everyone who watched it was thinking. Within hours, it had hundreds of thousands of views. Colorado fans shared it everywhere. Former teammates from the Buffalo program responded to it. NFL fans who had never watched a single Colorado game in their lives shared it because the energy in that 6-second clip is universal. It doesn't require any background in college football rivalries to understand. It doesn't require knowing who Travis Hunter is or what Torrey Horton said in 2023. It just requires being a human being who has ever had to correct a record, who has ever had someone get something fundamentally wrong about who you are or where you come from, and who has had to decide in real time whether to let it slide or to stop everything and say, "No, that's not right, let's try this again." And that is exactly why it spread the way it did. Because the football world had spent the entire month of June talking about trade rumors, quarterback depth charts, supplemental draft picks, anonymous sources, and analytics breakdowns. Heavy, grinding, often exhausting content that exists in the space between the end of the previous season and the beginning of the next one. And then this clip arrived. Something warm, something human, something that reminded everyone watching that underneath all of the NFL machinery and all of the media narratives and all of the pressure of a quarterback competition, there is a 24-year-old man who still bleeds black and gold, who has not forgotten a single thing about where he came from or what he built, and who will stop an interview cold to make sure the record is straight. Now here is where this story moves beyond entertainment, because it would be easy to watch the Nike opening finals clip and laugh and move on and forget about it by the following morning. It would be easy to file it under funny viral sports moment and never think about it again. But if you have been paying attention to Shedeur Sanders throughout the entire 2026 offseason, if you have watched every press conference, read every interview, tracked every public moment, the clip is not just funny, it is revelatory. Because the Shedeur Sanders that the public has seen since January, the version that shows up at press conferences and post-practice media availabilities and carefully curated Instagram moments, has been almost unnervingly composed. Every question about the quarterback competition answered with the kind of measured, thoughtful, diplomatically crafted response that suggests either extraordinary emotional maturity or extensive media training, and probably both. I don't think I'm in a competition because I have no control over what other people think. Delivered without flinching. Every question about trade rumors met with the same calm, the same steadiness, the same almost supernatural refusal to be rattled. Every anonymous criticism,
Every bust label, every film breakdown published by someone trying to prove a point about what Shedeur Sanders can and cannot do at the NFL level, absorbed without any visible reaction, without any public response that suggested the noise was getting through. The public Shedeur Sanders of the 2026 offseason has been the flawlessly composed professional, the one who has clearly made a decision about how he is going to be perceived and has executed that decision with remarkable consistency. And then came June 29th in Beaverton, and then came 4 words, and then came 6 seconds where none of that composure, none of that management, none of that careful construction was available because there was no time to reach for it. There was only instinct. And what instinct produced was the most authentic, the most unfiltered, the most genuinely Shedeur thing that has happened in a public setting since this offseason began. That instinct is worth dwelling on, because in the context of a quarterback competition in Cleveland, in the context of everything that Todd Monken and Mike Bogiakin and the entire Browns coaching staff have been evaluating since the spring, that instinct is not a side note. It is not a fun personality quirk that makes for good social media content. It is arguably the most important thing a quarterback can demonstrate, and it is the thing that is hardest to teach, hardest to develop, and hardest to evaluate from film alone. The instinct to read a situation in real time and immediately recognize that something is wrong. The instinct to stop everything, to not let momentum carry you forward into an outcome that shouldn't happen, and to correct the course without hesitation, without apology, and without losing composure in the process. Shedeur didn't stumble when the introduction happened. He didn't look confused or unsure about how to handle it. He didn't look around to see how other people were reacting before deciding what to do. He processed it, he acted on it, and he did it in a way that was confident and controlled and completely natural. No, hold on, let's redo it. That is a quarterback decision. That is the kind of processing speed and competitive clarity that coaches spend entire off-seasons trying to identify in film rooms, on practice fields, in controlled situations with pressure applied. And Shedeur Sanders produced it at a Nike event in Beaverton in front of high school kids with his teammates standing a few feet away, because that is not a switch he turns on when the cameras are pointed at him in the right context. It is simply who he is. And in that, there is something genuinely significant for the competition that is waiting for him in training camp. Jerry Jeudy being there matters more than it might initially seem, because the entire offseason narrative around the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation has been built around questions and uncertainties in projections, and one of the most discussed elements of that narrative has been the developing connection between Shedeur and Jeudy. The T3 performance training session photos that circulated earlier in the offseason, the sideline energy, the 60-yard touchdown from Week 14 of the previous season that had people talking about what this combination could look like with a full offseason of work behind it. In here, at a Nike event in Beaverton, in a moment that had absolutely nothing to do with football operations, the two of them were present together. And when Shedeur stopped the interview and made the correction, Jerry Jeudy was right there for it, watching his quarterback refuse to accept a wrong introduction with the same energy and the same instinct that you want your quarterback to bring to every third down, every 2-minute drill, every moment where something is wrong and the only correct response is to stop and fix it before it becomes something worse. That is not nothing. The people in the Cleveland Browns building who have been watching this offseason unfold understand that. The people who have been in the room when Todd Monken talks about what he needs from the quarterback position understand that. Connection between a quarterback and his receiver is not just about route running and arm angles and chemistry on the field. It is about shared identity, shared energy, shared competitive drive. And on June 29th, two teammates stood on a Nike campus and reminded each other and everyone watching that what is being built in Cleveland has a foundation that goes deeper than a depth chart. This moment did not happen in a vacuum. It landed in the middle of a week where the reporting around the Browns' quarterback situation continued to suggest that Deshaun Watson retained a significant advantage heading into training camp. It landed during a period where national analysts were still actively debating whether the trade rumors involving Shedeur were serious enough to monitor. It arrived 28 days before the start of training camp and 55 days before the regular season kicked off. And in that specific context, the 6-second clip carries a message that has nothing to do with Colorado State and everything to do with what is coming. It says that this quarterback is going to correct the record, wherever the record needs to be corrected, however the misidentification presents itself, whether it comes from a host at a Nike event who gets the wrong school, or a coaching staff working through an evaluation process, or a national media machine that has been writing a certain story about this quarterback since before he took his first NFL snap. The response is going to be the same. A hand raised, eye contact made, 6 words delivered with complete calm and complete conviction. No, hold on, let's redo it. Training camp opens July 28th. The actual correction begins there. Every rumor, every anonymous source, every film breakdown, every depth chart projection published between now and that date is the wrong introduction, and Shedeur Sanders has now shown the entire football world in the most human and unscripted way possible exactly how he handles wrong introductions. There is something worth holding on to when this video ends and you move on to the next thing, about what it means when an athlete who has been almost robotically composed in public for 6 months has one unguarded moment, and what comes out of it is not frustration, not insecurity, not desperation, but pure competitive identity, pure loyalty to who he is and where he came from. The Shedeur who beat Colorado State 28-9 and felt every moment of that victory. The The Shedeur who remembers exactly what was said before those games, and exactly how it felt to walk off that field having answered every word of it. That Shedeur is still there, underneath all the press conference polish and the diplomatic phrasing in the carefully managed public persona. He didn't disappear when Shedeur got drafted. He didn't get left behind in Boulder. He came to Cleveland with him. He is in the film room. He is on the practice field. He is going to be on that field when training camp opens and the real evaluation begins. And the most important thing about the Nike opening finals clip is not the laugh or the hand raise or the 6 words or the internet reaction. The most important thing is what it confirms, that the competitive fire underneath everything Shedeur Sanders has shown publicly this offseason is not manufactured, not performed, not a character he has constructed for public consumption. It is real. It is instinctive, it surfaces without warning when the moment demands it, and it is absolutely, completely, 100% still there. The press conferences told you what he wanted you to know. The Nike clip told you the truth. And if you understand the difference between those two things, you understand everything you need to know about what is coming when the real football starts. Colorado once was. The NFL is about to find out.